The most important emails your app requires is transactional emails, and most developers often neglect this when building their web application. My name is David. I'm with the SendLayer team, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to send an email from Python using the SendLayer Python SDK. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, on my code editor here, I have a basic Python file which just include a send email package.env and a virtual environment. I've already activated my virtual environment, and this is the command to activate it. So if you need additional help for that, I'll put a link to that in the description section. So what I'm going to focus on for this particular video is setting up Python and also how to send an email. So to get started, you need to first install the SendLayer package. So I'm going to install that along with .env. I've already installed it, which is why it's showing requirement already satisfied. Once that is installed, we'll go ahead and import some of the dependencies we're going to need for this project. The first two I'm going to import is the .env package we installed, and also the OS library, which is going to help us to access the environment variable. After that, I'm also going to import the SendLayer package. SendLayer also includes an error module which helps you to catch errors while you're working on your project. This is the best practice, so you know if your email is working right off the bat. After importing the packages, I'm going to load the .env library we just installed. This is going to make it easy for our pattern scripts to be able to read the environment variable. After adding the load env method, I'm going to create a function which we're going to use to send the email. So I'm just going to call this send email function. Within this function, we're going to first of all load the API key from the environment variable, and then add a brief conditioner to check if it's not loaded in the contained in an environment variable. I'm just going to add raise an evaluate error. After retrieving the API key, I'm going to initialize the SendLayer module with the API key. The SendLayer module requires the API key to initialize it. After initializing the SendLayer SDK, the next step is to configure your parameters and then call the send method in order to trigger the API request. And then I'm going to wrap everything in a try-catch block so that we catch errors as they occur. So the idea is to raise an exception whenever there's an error, and then the handy package, the handy module we use for this is the SendLayer error module, which is also equipped with some of the most common errors related to sending emails. And then within the try block, we specify the params field, which the SendLayer, to configure the SendLayer SDK, you need to configure your sender, the recipient, which is the to field. You need to configure your subject, and then you also need to configure the either text or HTML. I'm going to keep this simple and use a basic HTML template, but you can pass an HTML template on an entire file, like a welcome email or a password reset template, which is ideally what this is specifically going to be used for. After setting up the params, the next step is to actually call the send method, and then that's made available from this SendLayer client we initialized. After that, we just call the SendLayer.emails.send method, passing in the params as an argument. And then I'm just going to log everything to see if it actually works. And then within the except log, I use this SendLayer error method to catch errors, and then just log that in the console. So errors like invalid API key, rate limit error, or invalid recipient, those would be logged in the console. So the idea of having this as a function is so that you can call it from an external file, and then ideally you want to pass in the recipients, the email subject, the HTML, so that it's going to be dynamic and it's also going to be reusable across your application. After setting everything up, we're going to confirm that it actually works by running a test. And to do that, I'm going to call this send email file and then run a Python script here. So we're getting invalid API key error, which is actually a good thing because it shows that the error handling is in place. And the reason we're getting that is because we didn't specify an actual API key that is valid. So I'm going to show you how to get your API key real quick. So to get your API key, log into your SendLayer account and then navigate to settings -- API keys. And then from there, you can either create a new key if you don't have one already, or copy an existing key. I already created one for this tutorial specifically, and then I'm just going to copy that. So you can create a free SendLayer account to get started. I'll put a link to that in the description section of this video. Once you have your API key, return back to the code editor and then update that in your .env file. So the best practice is to not commit this .env file into version control platform. So I'm showing you my API key in this video because I'm still going to delete it before this video goes live. But ideally, you don't want to show your API key commit it in a version control platform like GitHub. So after adding the API key, I've also specified my from email address. So the from email address also needs to match the the domain you verified on your SendLayer account. So I'm just going to run the send email command again to see if we actually get set message ID. So we got that, and then the most important thing to keep an eye on is the message ID, which indicates that the message was actually sent. So on my Gmail account, you can see I received the email. This is showing that we sent an email from the SendLayer Python SDK, which is showing that the email we sent from the script actually works. So there you have it. That's how to send an email in Python using the SendLayer SDK. The SDK also includes additional parameters, which you can include to your emails. For example, you may want to set up a custom reply to email address, or you want to include attachments like PDFs, invoices. SendLayer SDK support that out of the box, and to do that, it's just a case of extending the params field to include the parameters you want to support. For example, I just added a reply to field and an attachments field to support attachments, and then adding a custom reply to email address. So whenever this email is sent, recipients who click on reply are going to see this reply at example.com as the recipient for that email address. And then when adding an attachment, you just need to specify the path and the type of the attachment you want to attach. Hope you found this video helpful. I'll put a link to the developer documentation, which includes all the available parameters and how to customize them in the description section of this video. I'll also put a link to get started with SendLayer if you need to get started. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.